inviting me. I feel honored and I really appreciate it. I think I must have done something right when I was here last, otherwise you wouldn't be inviting me again, so be that as it may. Paper is such a boring, well-known, taken for granted thing. How on earth am I going to sex up a talk on paper? You've got paper is one of the most ubiquitous things that we have on the planet. It's also one of the things that we take totally for granted. Now I'm going to explain to you how this little piece of paper, any of them for that matter, has made such a huge contribution to the nature of our environment on this planet. It comes from wood. Trees have got to be cut down, they get made into small, tiny little chips. They're then chemically digested in various chemicals, and you get a goddamn awful brown sludge with fiber in it. You take out, filter out the fiber, and you keep the sludge, and I'll come back to that a bit later. And then you've got these fibers, and you process them, you clean them up, and you compact them, and then you use chemicals, and you compress them. And now, how does this help the world? Well, in some parts of the world, it hasn't really. It's done the opposite, but I'll come to that again later. What happened in the paper-making industries largely started in the Northern Hemisphere, where, as you probably all know, they have these vast forests, especially in Russia, Siberia. Now, a tree in Europe that is used for paper and timber typically takes about 100 to 300 years to grow to full size. And then he realized, no, this is no good for South Africa. And he then developed a specific pine tree and a specific gum tree, pine tree from Mexico, gum trees from Australia. He modified them in such a way that the gum trees in South Africa could grow faster than bamboo. In fact, our gum trees that you see in all the forests around South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal, they grow at a rate of 3 meters a year, which is a hell of a rate compared to your stinkwood tree or your oak tree. I mean, they take years and years. And he realized what was happening. That enabled him to supply paper to South Africa, and it made the paper industry in South Africa viable because you could get new growth every 8 years, whereas in Europe that would take 100 to 150 years. You could replenish your supply every... So the paper industry got going in 1936, and Mondi joined the club and a couple of other companies. So if you plant trees, what are you doing? You are planting a carbon capturing device in the atmosphere. So the more trees you plant, the more carbon dioxide you're taking out of the atmosphere, and the less impact that all the other carbon dioxide producing processes like cars, who burn gasoline, anything that burns fossil fuel. The more trees you have, the more carbon dioxide you're taking out of the atmosphere. We looked at our paper mills, and we saw that typically they consume a lot of electricity from Eskom. They consume a lot of coal to run their boilers, various process plants and things like that. Excuse me. But they also realize that in their effluent, they are discarding a lot of the pulping liquors. Remember I said to you earlier, when you make paper, you cook the paper chips and you get a brown liquid from which you filter out the fiber to make the paper. That brown liquid, if you concentrate that enough, in other words, you boil off the excess water, can be used as a fuel. You could burn it. And we realized that in SAPPI, hang on, why are we throwing away this green energy sitting on our premises, bearing in mind the carbon in that liquor came from the atmosphere, via the trees. Why are we throwing it away in our effort? So we realized then, hang on, let's change our process and use that liquid to run the boilers instead of coal. So now what we were doing, we were using green energy from the trees instead of fossil fuel from the coal. They don't buy electricity from Eskom anymore, and they don't buy coal from the coal mines. All their fuel now comes from the pulping liquor, the pulping process plant, all because of this. All because of, would you believe it, piece of paper, what it's done. Now, to the extent that, okay, SAPPI has changed their product range from fine paper to what's called dissolving pulp, which is much more useful. 95% of which is all exported to the rest of the world. But it's all made from forests that were developed in this country because the trees grow so fast compared to the northern hemisphere counterparts. Thank you very much.